Good morning, everybody. It's pickling season. We're getting ours started a little bit late. I was waiting for all the pickles to come in. Right now, what I'm going to be doing is just using this basic, scrubby like we used to do our dishes. You're going to use the rough side. I'm just getting the pricklies off. Once we have that done, we're going to soak them in some ice water. Okay, so you want to look at your blossom end of your pickle versus your stem end. Now, the key is we all want to have a really nice, crunchy, crisp pickle when we pull it out of the jar later. So there's some tricks to this, okay? So first trick that I've learned from other folks is you cut off the blossom end. Now let's look at a couple of these here. So your stem end kind of has a little knobby stem on it. Your blossom end, you see how both of them, they're green on the stem end and they go a little bit white or lighter green toward the blossom end. That's how you know which is the blossom end. Now you're not wanting to cut a ton off of there, just a little bit. And this is supposed to help them be more firm and less mushy, which is what we want. We want a crisp dill pickle. So that's even a little bit too much off of there. Okay, stem end, blossom end. Look for the end that's lighter in color. Okay, so we've got all of our cucumbers de-blossom-ended, okay, and they're now soaking in our ice water. We emptied these trays in here, and this is going to need to soak for about 1 hour. We take our ends and it goes right into our compost bucket. We have one compost bucket in the kitchen, and we have a larger one outside on the back porch. So as for now, let these be iced for about 1 hour. Now, if you don't have a lot of ice, if you feel limited in that department, put them in your refrigerator. Put them in the cold water, put as much ice as you have, and then put them in your fridge for 1 hour to hour and 20 minutes. So while our cucumbers are cooling down, which is one of the key steps, okay, so cutting the blossom end off and putting them on ice or in the fridge for 1 hour or so to crisp helps them be crispier and crunchier later. Those are two of the main steps. Okay, and I'll say the third one now, in case I don't say it later. The third step is don't boil them for too long. You want them to be in the hot water bath canner for just about the right amount of time. Okay, so now we're going to prepare our brine and go over all the supplies you'll need. So you'll need a large pot for your brine that you're going to make for your dill pickles. You need a large canning pot with a drop wire holder. Okay, this is going to hold your jars, and this wire net usually comes with the canning pot when you buy it. Usually comes with that, okay, if you've never canned before. You want something to pick up hot jars with, okay? This is a typical canning tongs. You want a funnel, and you want your jars. Okay, now we're going to be doing pint size, wide mouth. That's just easier to deal with pickles, but you can use any size jars you want. You're going to want white vinegar, pickling salt, garlic. This is garlic from the garden, so you want fresh clove garlic. I have used the jarred stuff before that's already minced. You can do that too, but this is just fresh from the garden, and I'm preferring to do that this year. And you're going to want, over here we've got some of our herbs hanging. We have some of our dill. Okay, so our dill is dry. Doesn't matter. You can have fresh dill or dry dill. You want a little bit of this. The flower and the greens, the fern part, of the dill have a slightly different taste, so it's okay to put some of both in each of your jars. So these things you're going to want. You're going to want your garlic and your dill when it comes to stuffing your jars. Okay, so right now what we want to get going while our cucumbers are soaking is we want to heat up our brine. And we want to start with 8.5 cups of water, filtered water. Make sure your water is clean. I've already put 4 cups in here. Okay, so this is 4 more cups, making 8. And a half. And then we want to have 2 1/4 cups white distilled vinegar. Now I've measured out 2 cups here and just added my 1/4 cup to that. Half cup pickling salt. Okay. And you want to warm that up so that it's nice and heated when you pour it into your jars later. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on about medium high, just let it start to warm up. And it's a good idea to take a spoon and mix that salt in while it's warming so that the salt dissolves. So one thing that I like to do is get my canning pot on the stove and get it starting heating up, because it just seems to take forever to bring this pot to a boil on this particular stove. So our brine's all ready to go. It is warming up, and we'll come back and stir that a little bit more later and make sure all that salt is into the liquid, dissolved. And then this is heating. Now I start with as hot a water as I can get out of my sink to begin this with, okay? And I start it warming up already. It's gonna get hot, because if you look over here, we've got our jars. Now the brine recipe that we're using should do well for 8 pints of pickles. That's what we're shooting for, okay? And so I've got 8 jars here, and I'm gonna take my sifting net, my strainer, and I'm gonna use that to hold my jars, my lids. You want to heat up your flat lids so that they will seal properly and pop. Okay, it's the heating them up that helps them to do that, and it gives them extra sterilization. Now, the word with canning is if you're going beyond, you know, if you're at least 10 plus minutes with your boiling bath, that also should be enough to really sterilize your jars. So it's up to you if you want to extra sterilize things or how you want to do it. But for the sake of this with pickles, we're going to be boiling it long enough, okay? So we want to get our jars off, take our rings off, and put our lids in there. So we're going to sink these down into that hot water when it's time and have them ready to go. And so if you don't have a strainer, it's not a problem. People do this any way that they can. So why I like the strainer is that I can put it here and let that dip down in that pot. And if you can see down in there how it goes, see, then when I raise them out, it's so easy. When I first started canning, I was putting those lids and the rings all down inside the bottom of the pot, and then I had to get tongs just to try to get them out of there, and it was very difficult. So this is a much easier way to do it. They stay netted in there, and I can just pull them right out. They're sterilized and clean and ready to pop and seal the jars. So that's just a little tip that I use. But I've seen people do it all kinds of different ways. They use a smaller pot for these, and just the water doesn't have to be excruciatingly hot. or just a bowl. I've seen people put it in a bowl of fairly hot water. Okay, so you have your options on how to do that. So we're still waiting for our cucumbers to finish chilling. And while we're doing that, we can fill our jars with I chopped up some of our ingredients here, our dill flower and our dill fern strands or fern leaves. And I also have some beautiful dill seed that I harvested last year. And our garlic, which I've got 2 halves per jar. Basically one small clove per jar. This is pretty potent garlic because we grew it in the garden, and I noticed that when the cloves grow small, they just seem twice as potent as a larger one. So that will be just fine, just 2 little pieces per jar. And last but not least, and I forgot to mention this earlier, strawberry leaves. Now, why am I putting strawberry leaves in my dill pickles? Well, I learned from the online community and from this one gal who's been learning from the online community like me, and I wish I could remember the name of her channel. She's kind of a homesteader. She has a little baby girl. It's something like homeborn, or I don't know, homegrown, something like that. Home raised. So is the name of her channel. So anyway, she mentioned, and I've seen others say this too, that you need something with tannins. Well, tannins are in strawberry leaves. So we're going to put some of that in each jar. And I think what I'm going to do is just slice these up a little bit to release some of that from the leaves. Okay, to help its constituencies get released more. And some of that's going to go in each jar as well. Just cut them in half. And we'll do them one more time. Okay, that'll be great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stuff these jars, and I think what I'm going to do is start with my garlic. Put 2 per jar. Okay, let's do some strawberry leaf. Do about 3 pieces in here to start with. And I'm just going to divide up the strawberry leaf evenly amongst the jars. I picked enough to have like 1 full leaf per jar. I picked 8 leaves from the get-go, so let's just see. Probably can put an extra piece in each one, I'm thinking. Yep, so let's put an extra piece in each one. Great. And this is not an exact science, okay? They don't have to be perfect. Okay, now I think what I'm gonna do, put some of my dill leaf in each jar. And my dill flower. Okay. Just gonna put those down in there. The dill's a pretty important part. Okay. And some seed. These are gonna be delicious. Just put a little bit of that in there. Oh, the seed has a lovely smell. There we go. Okay, so now we're still waiting for our cucumbers so we can slice them up as soon as they're cool, about another 10 minutes. Okay, so our cucumbers are done being chilled, which helps them get crunchy. And now I'm going to cut them into spears. We'll see how many spears we do, and I'll probably do some chips as well, maybe even some whole ones. We'll see what we can fit into these jars. So one of the things I do is I take my pickles and I'll take one and I'll hold it up like this one's pretty long here next to the jar, and be sure that's going to fit in there. Okay, that one's almost too long. I might cut a little bit off there, but like this. So then I'll line them all up and be sure they're about the same size. And then I'm cutting them into spears. You want to be sure that they're going to fit in the jars that you have. So that's important. These are just beautiful. So let's start stuffing these jars just to see where we're at. We might have more cucumbers than we need. And stuff these in pretty tight. Okay. As tight as you can. If you look over to the side here, these are all the extra ones. I mean, we just really had quite a cucumber harvest this year. And so those I will use either, I'll try to do some whole pickles out of those, or chips for burgers. So you do your pickles how you like to eat your pickles. So the spears are great because they'll just be a wonderful snack through the fall and winter. And we have sandwiches and such, and burgers and such for the chips. Okay, those are just fitting in there. Okay, now let me see, for our whole pickles, they're not really big jars, so I'm going to go with ones that are a little bit smaller and skinnier. Like these guys here. Let's try to do at least one jar. Whole or half pickles. We'll try to half them. Okay. You can cut them any way you want. Any way you can fit them in there, and any way you want to eat them. I think we'll put these over here. And then why don't we do some chips? Okay, so it's time. So I am going to heat up my lids. Okay. And you want to be careful and not burn your hand doing this. We're going to place our brine in our jars. That's what our funnel is for. It really helps to just keep everything straight into the jar. Now you want to stop with about a ½ inch from the top of your jar, which tends to land right at about this ring here. Okay, you want a tiny bit of space there in the top of each jar. Something like this, and you want, or a chopstick or anything like that, and you can go like this. You want to squeeze whatever air bubbles might be in there out so that you're sure to be getting about a 1/2 inch of space up top. You might need to add a little bit of fluid after doing this. Okay, and you want those air bubbles out because you want it, again, to seal properly. You don't want, you want everything in there to be healthy and safe for eating, and you don't want air bubbles in there. Okay, so we'll do this, and you can see how it, when we're doing this, it can make the fluid level go down a bit. Don't skip this step. It's a very important step. Okay, now we might top off a little bit with a little bit more fluid. Next, I'm placing the pint jars into the basket, the wire basket that's going to go down into my large canning pot. Okay, all these to fit as best we can. I find that doing it like this and then lowering the basket down all at once keeps me from dropping the basket. I mean, it's a clumsy, sloppy kind of process if you've got your basket hanging on the edge of your pot while you're trying to load it. And if you drop a jar down in there or the basket falls, you splash a lot of hot water on yourself, and that's not a good thing. So that's why I do it this way. I'm going to now lower them down into the hot water. And as you can see, this hangs right on the side like that. But when we're canning them and we want them to boil, this will go down inside. It's supposed to go down inside. Okay. Okay, we're going to put the lid on and we're going to let those boil. I've almost got my water boiling. And you want those to water bath in your boiling hot water for 10 minutes. And you really don't want to go much over that because you've done all this work to try to get crispy. And overboiling can make mushy pickles. Okay, so we've dropped our basket of jars into our canning pot and it's now boiling. When you put your jars in your canning pot, you want to wind up with your water bath being about 1 to 2 inches above your jar lids so that your jars are completely submerged in the boiling water. Okay, and we've set our timer, and so we're waiting now for our 10 minutes. And the time can shift according to where you're located. So I've seen, this is something, don't quote me because I'm not an expert on this. I just learned what I need to do for my area. We're about sea level. So you start at about sea level and measure up from there. I believe per 1,000 feet of elevation, you add a few minutes. I think it's perhaps 5 minutes. So, and sometimes per size of jar, you might add some boiling time. So if you're in a mountain area, you might want to Google online or get out your canning book and look at look at what your elevation is and then how much your boiling water bath time should be for your area. So our timer went off. That's our 10 minutes of boiling. Now we're going to come off of that hot burner and let our jars cool for a little bit. I'm taking this lid off. We're just going to let them cool for a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It's been about 5 minutes and I've gone ahead and pulled up the wire basket, and I'm just letting them rest there for another couple minutes. And then when that's done, we'll go ahead and move them over here to sit on this cutting board. You don't want to move extremely hot jars to a cold surface. A countertop, this is tile or marble, that's hotter than, excuse me, that's much cooler, so it's more of a shock to the hot jar than a wood cutting board or a towel. So the other way to do it if you're on your countertop is to put a towel down, and I would double it. I would double the towel. We are now lifting our water bathed jars of dill pickles out of the pot with our tongs. A little bit stuck at first. Okay, here we go. Be very gentle and slow and careful with this, because you don't want to drop anything and you don't want to burn yourself. Now you're waiting to hear them pop. When you hear them pop, you know that it is properly sealed. I haven't heard one yet. And you can see the jar, if you can close in on like this one and this one, Tristan, with the camera, you can see in here it's slightly raised. So when they pop, that'll push down. Okay, and so if you have one that doesn't pop and doesn't seal properly, you want to put that in the fridge and just eat on that right away, and it'll stay good for, I'd think probably at least a month in your fridge. Refrigerator dill pickles, I've read recipes for them that even people have had them stay good up to 2 months in the fridge. So it's just that you don't want that unsealed one to go on your shelf in your cupboard, because it can go bad. Hear that? Did you hear that pop? There was one. Let's see, it's this one. You can see now. See, the lid's pushed down. There's kind of a little circle in the middle.